Long before Rome was a muddy collection of huts on 7 hills, long before the phalanxes of Alexander shattered the Persian world, the earth shook under the weight of 2 unstoppable superpowers. To the south, the new kingdom of Egypt, a civilization fueled by centuries of absolute religious devotion, immense agricultural wealth from the Nile, and the raw ambition of its young, newly crowned pharaoh, Ramesses II. To the north, the Hittite Empire, a massive iron-willed powerhouse ruling from their mountainous capital of Hattusa in modern-day Turkey. They were masters of bureaucracy, exceptional metallurgists, and the undisputed kings of heavy chariot warfare. For generations, these 2 giants played a high-stakes, multi-generational game of geopolitical tug-of-war. The board, the wealthy trade principalities of the Levant. This narrow strip of land along the Mediterranean coast was the economic artery of the Bronze Age. Whoever controlled it controlled the flow of cedar wood, silver, olive oil, and tin. And right on the razor's edge of this shifting border sat a single, heavily fortified city, a fortress built on a hill hugged by the waters of the Orontes River, Kadesh. Kadesh was not just a city. It was the linchpin of empire. If Egypt held it, they could project power directly into the Hittite heartland. If the Hittites held it, Egypt's northern empire was permanently under threat. For decades, local kings played the superpowers against each other, swearing allegiance to Pharaoh when an Egyptian army marched by, then instantly sending secret tribute to the Hittite king the moment the Egyptians went home. But in the year 1274 before the Common Era, the time for diplomatic games was over. The geopolitical fault lines had fractured. A young king had just ascended the throne of Egypt. Ramesses II did not want to manage an empire. He wanted to emulate the legendary conquests of his grandfather, Ramesses I and Thutmose III. He wanted immortality. And the road to immortality ran directly through the gates of Kadesh. To understand the carnage that was about to unfold, we must understand the sheer scale of the logistical and technological machinery these 2 empires mobilized. This was not a clash of tribal warbands. This was industrial-scale Bronze Age warfare. Ramesses gathered an army of 20,000 men. In the ancient world, feeding, watering, and moving 20,000 human beings and thousands of horses across hundreds of miles of desert is a logistical nightmare of terrifying proportions. He organized his force into 4 massive divisions, each functioning as an independent, self-contained army group. Each was named after a dominant deity of the Egyptian pantheon, representing a distinct regional power center of Egypt. The Amun division was led by Ramesses himself, comprised of the elite veterans of the royal court and the elite corps of the Delta forces. The Ra division was the southern powerhouse, drawn from the sun-drenched regions of Heliopolis. The Ta division held the engineers and shock troops from the ancient capital of Memphis. And the Seth division comprised the fierce, unpredictable warriors from the frontier regions of the eastern delta. The pride of this army was its chariot corps. The Egyptian chariot was a masterpiece of aerospace engineering for its time. Built from flexible leather, ash wood, and plum wood, it was incredibly light, so light that 2 men could easily lift it over their heads. Its axle was placed at the very rear of the chassis, giving it maximum stability at high speeds. It carried 2 men, a driver and a combatant, armed with a deadly composite bow made of layered horn, wood, and sinew. This weapon could launch bronze-tipped arrows with enough kinetic force to pierce leather armor at over 200 yards. The Egyptian chariot was not a battering ram. It was a highly mobile, high-speed sniper platform. But if the Egyptians were masters of speed, the Hittites were masters of crushing unstoppable mass. King Muwatalli II did not just call upon his standing army. He emptied his treasury to buy the loyalty of every mercenary, vassal state, and ally across Anatolia and the Aegean. He amassed an unprecedented force, nearly 40,000 infantry and a staggering 3,700 heavy chariots. Look at the structural differences. The Hittite chariot was a heavy timber-framed beast. Its axle was placed right in the middle of the vehicle to support immense weight. Crucially, it carried 3 men instead of 2. A driver, a shield-bearer, and a warrior armed with a massive thrusting spear. The Hittites did not try to outshoot you from a distance. They used their chariots as shock cavalry, an iron fist designed to smash directly into infantry lines, crushing bones and breaking formations through raw kinetic force. 2 fundamentally opposed military philosophies were traveling toward each other on a collision course. Speed versus mass. The sniper versus the battering ram, or so we thought. May 1274 BCE. The Syrian heat is oppressive. Imagine the sensory reality of this march. The air is a suffocating soup of dust kicked up by 80,000 marching sandals and thousands of pounding hooves. The smell of sweat, leather, and animal manure stretches for miles across the landscape. Ramesses is young, proud, and profoundly overconfident. He moves at a blistering pace, leaving the Ammon division far ahead of the Ra, Ta, and Seth divisions. He is eager to catch the enemy unawares. As the Ammon division approaches the Orontes River just south of Kadesh, 2 men are dragged into the royal pavilion by Egyptian scouts. They are Shasu nomads, desert wanderers. Ramesses questions them, "Where is Muwatalli? Where is the Hittite host?" The nomads drop to their knees. They tell the Pharaoh exactly what his ego wants to hear. They claim King Muwatalli is terrified of the Egyptian advance. They say the Hittite army has retreated hundreds of miles to the north near Aleppo, too cowardly to face the wrath of Egypt. Ramesses is ecstatic. He believes them without sending out deep scouts to verify the claim. Why shouldn't he? The landscape ahead appears completely dead. No dust clouds on the horizon, no enemy scouts. The silence of the Syrian valley feels like submission. And that is an intelligence failure that will echo through centuries of military history. Because those 2 nomads were not defectors. They were deep cover Hittite agents, sent by Muwatalli on a suicide mission to feed the young pharaoh lethal misinformation. Muwatalli is not in Aleppo. He is not hundreds of miles away. He is standing right on the reverse slope of the hill of Kadesh, perfectly hidden by the topography of the land. His massive army is coiled like a striking viper, completely invisible to the advancing Egyptians. Every step Ramesses takes into the valley narrows his chances of survival. The trap is set, and the young pharaoh has walked right into its jaws. While Ramesses prepares his camp, his scouts capture 2 genuine Hittite soldiers. This time, there are no gentle questions. The Egyptians beat them mercilessly with wooden staves until the horrific, bone-chilling truth is dragged into the light. The Hittite captives gasp for air, pointing toward the ridge outside the tent. "The king of Hatti has arrived with many nations," they scream. They stand prepared for battle behind the old city of Kadesh. Ramesses is struck with horror. He realizes his army is fatally scattered. The Ra division is miles behind him, crossing the river in open marching order. The Ptah and Seth divisions are even further south, completely oblivious to the danger. He is isolated, exposed, and vulnerable. He instantly dispatches frantic messengers to ride south at breakneck speed to warn the Ra and Ptah divisions. But it is too late. Time has run out. Suddenly, the earth begins to tremble. At first, the Egyptian soldiers think it is distant thunder. Then comes the deafening industrial roar of 22,000 hooves and thousands of wooden wheels tearing through the brush. From around the southern flank of Kadesh, across the shallow waters of the Orontes River, Muwatalli unleashes his heavy chariot corps. Wave after wave of three-man heavy chariots explode out of the tree line, slamming directly into the flank of the completely unprepared Ra division. The impact is catastrophic. The Ra division never even has a chance to draw their bows or form defensive squares. Hittite long spears punch through Egyptian leather. Heavy wooden wheels crush infantrymen into the dirt. Formations instantly collapse. The Ra division is utterly cut in two. Panic spreads through the ranks like wildfire, and the survivors flee in absolute terror toward the north, straight into Ramesses' personal camp. The Grand Army of Egypt is disintegrating in a matter of minutes. Now, the fleeing remnants of Ra crash into the Amun camp, bringing their pure terror with them. The Hittite shockwave follows closely behind, tearing through the Egyptian camp perimeter. Ramesses' generals are advising flight. His priests are praying for a swift death. The Egyptian empire faces total, absolute annihilation on foreign soil. If the Pharaoh dies or is captured here, Egypt's golden age ends in the dust of Syria. But it is in this exact moment, facing the abyss, that the petulant young Pharaoh vanishes, and Ramesses the Great is born. According to the inscriptions on the walls of Luxor, Ramesses looked upon the sea of enemies and refused to yield. He calls out to his personal bodyguard. He leaps onto his golden chariot, Victory in Thebes, and charges directly into the densest ranks of the Hittite onslaught. He is practically alone, surrounded by thousands of enemy chariots. He fires arrow after arrow with lethal precision, exploiting the one fatal weakness of the Hittite war machine: agility. The Hittite chariots had broken the Egyptian lines, but in doing so, they had become victims of their own success. Inside the tight confines of the Egyptian camp, tucked between tents and baggage trains, the massive three-man Hittite vehicles couldn't easily turn around. They were slow, heavy, and bogged down by looting. Ramesses and his elite personal guard used their ultra-light chariots to dance around the edges of the Hittite mass, striking with arrows, withdrawing, spinning around, and striking again. Yet, even with Ramesses fighting like a man possessed, the sheer numbers are against him. His horses are bleeding, his quiver is running dry. But then, just as the final Egyptian defensive line is about to break, a massive cloud of dust rises from the western horizon. It is the Nearin. And this is where true historical research reveals itself. Because, unlike a lot of people believe, this was not a calculated plan. This was an absolute miracle of military timing. The Nearin were a separate elite specialized force that Ramesses had sent along the Mediterranean coast weeks prior. They had no idea an ambush was happening. They were simply arriving exactly on schedule to rendezvous with the main army. They arrive to find their pharaoh fighting for his life. With a ferocious battle cry, they slam into the exposed, disorganized flank of the Hittites. The tables turn in an instant. The exhausted Hittite crews, heavily weighted down by the gold and goods they were looting from the Egyptian tents, are completely taken by surprise. They break. The hunters become the hunted. The remaining Hittite forces are driven back into the Orontes River, drowning under the weight of their own heavy bronze armor. When the dust finally settled the next day, after a second day of brutal, indecisive slugfest fighting, a profound, eerie silence fell over Kadesh. Neither empire had won. Ramesses had saved himself from total destruction, but he utterly failed to take the city of Kadesh. Muwatalli had executed a brilliant ambush, but failed to destroy the Egyptian army. It was a bloody, exhausting tactical stalemate. But the story of Kadesh does not end in a pool of blood. It ends with a piece of clay. 15 years after the slaughter, exhausted by endless proxy wars and facing a terrifying new threat from the rising Syrian Empire, Ramesses II and the new Hittite king, Hattusili III, realized that mutual collaboration was their only alternative to survival. So they did something entirely revolutionary for the ancient world. They didn't just stop fighting. They signed the Egyptian-Hittite Peace Treaty. This is the world's oldest surviving international peace treaty. Written in both Egyptian hieroglyphs and Hittite cuneiform on silver and clay tablets, it did more than declare a truce. It established a formal mutual defense alliance, built an extradition system for political refugees, and laid out rules for diplomatic immunity. Today, a bronze replica of this exact ancient clay document hangs prominently in the halls of the United Nations headquarters in New York City. It serves as a timeless testament to humanity's capacity to choose words over weapons, a model of global statecraft born directly from the terrifying dust, broken bones, and spilled blood of Kadesh. If you felt the suffocating heat of that ancient Syrian battlefield and appreciate the deep, complex history of the ancient world, do not forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Drop a comment below. Do you think Ramesses was a brilliant military savior, or just an incredibly lucky king who fell for an obvious trap? Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next deep dive into history.